So this webinar, which I titled, "Why is my wife kind of pissed at me?" Came out of a lot of years of work with other guys, years of my own story. If you do or don't know my story, I'll make it really brief. My wife and I have been married for 24 years. I struggled with an issue with pornography, which that's my issue. This could be related to any type of betrayal that might have existed in your marriage. It may just simply be that generally uncomfortable feeling most guys have, or because I'm not 100% sure of who's watching, most people have when they're dealing with their spouse, this uncomfortable situation of, I feel like they're kind of pissed at me and I'm really not sure why. I lied to my wife over a period of years, more than 1,000 times, and we rebuilt our marriage from 2010 until now. And we have a really great marriage now. But out of that, I've learned a whole bunch of skills and learned a whole bunch of things that I want to share with you. This webinar is kind of an introduction. What I'd like to do is on a monthly basis dive into some of these topics more deeply, but it will be a paid process because this is my full-time job. But in the webinar, I'd like to get some feedback. I'd like to hear your questions. I'd like to find out if you're even interested in moving forward and see any value in doing this. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is I do want to share some really valuable stuff with you about that general feeling of why is my wife kind of pissed at me. And so I put together kind of a short list, and if you, well, you'll get to know me as we go through this, but I can be pretty talkative. So if I miss something or you have a question, again, please feel free to share it in the chat window. I'll see it, and I will address those questions as we go along. If you have enough interest, what I will do is I'll bring in my wife, Lori, toward the end of the Q&A section, and you can ask her questions, and she's going to share a little of why she feels like, she was kind of pissed at me at times, and how to navigate that feeling, because sometimes it's just a feeling and sometimes it's really true. So here we go with getting into the meat of it. Now, I understand that this is probably more my experience, but I want to pass it on to you as at least something to consider. Consider the idea that she might really be pissed at you, because when we listen to another person, when I listened to Lori, I listened with the intention of trying to fix it. I didn't listen to listen. I wanted to just make the problem stop. And I wanted her, I wanted her to feel better, but at the same time, I also could not deal with these intense feelings that she had in a healthy way. I wasn't okay with my own emotions to the point that I really couldn't experience her emotions very well. So that may be true for some of you listening, is you have done something in your life where you've avoided dealing with your own emotions to the point that when it comes to someone else's emotions, you feel really out of place. You really have no idea what to do with those emotions. And, in my past, my addictive behavior, I went and medicated those feelings versus really trying to address those feelings. So when Lori would share with me her upset, I just wanted to fix it. I wanted it to stop. And when you do that, the other person is shut down. The value of their emotions is not addressed, and so they're kind of shut down by the conversation. That's what happens when we try to fix it. Now, there is a place to say, okay, now that you've shared, what can I do about this? Or is there something you want me to do about this? But when that's our go-to, when Lori would say to me, Jay, this really hurts, and I'm like, oh, well, if you understood, it wouldn't hurt so bad, and I wouldn't value her feelings, I wouldn't value her emotions. And that led to her being kind of generally pissed at me. Not because of continuing in my negative behaviors, but because her feelings weren't valued. And from my standpoint, I certainly understand why she was kind of upset about that. And then, when I was willing to listen, I was listening more to respond. It was, let me hear enough of what you're saying so that I can respond to it and tell her why her feelings weren't valid, or why, if she really understood the situation, she wouldn't be so upset. And I would not empathize with her. And empathizing and sympathizing, those sometimes are used interchangeably, and they're really very different words. Sympathy is kind of, it sucks to be you. It sucks to be you. I feel sorry for you, but I'm really not going to let your emotions impact me. Where empathy is, your emotions have impacted me because I want to connect with you. I may not fully understand your experience, but I want to connect with you enough that I'm going to do whatever it is that I can understand your emotions. I can understand the pain you're in. And I will sit with you there. And empathy takes an investment. Empathy takes time. It takes a willingness to sit in uncomfortable emotions that someone else is having. And as a guy, generally, we're not trained to value emotion. Generally. For the most part, we're taught emotions are bad and we should kill them at all cost. We're also taught to be tough, not necessarily strong, but tough, meaning nothing gets to us, kind of a thing. When you're empathizing with another person, you're letting them get to you. You're letting them in. And that takes a level of vulnerability that most guys are not used to, not comfortable with. So that's kind of the first one, is when we listen to fix, we don't listen to empathize. That would be, the first place where I think women, our wives, our girlfriends, our partners feel like we're missing them somehow. The second thing that I feel like is really important, and where our wives tend to feel standoffish or pissed or distant, is we don't validate what they're feeling. So empathizing is a good thing to do. Empathizing means connecting with their emotions. Validation means telling them they're not crazy for what they feel. And validation is tricky, because validation may mean that, especially when Lori was angry with me, my validation was, I can understand why you're upset with me over that, and you have every right to be. Now, I wasn't agreeing with her. I was just saying that her feelings were valid. So validation isn't agreement. However, it is letting them know that those feelings are real. Certain behaviors, whatever you want to say about pornography, it doesn't matter if that's an issue or not. I lied to her 1,000 times, at least. That causes a lot of damage in a relationship. And then when we would have healing conversations, I would do some of these things like trying to fix it, or honestly just trying to get her to shut up because I didn't want to hear how badly I had hurt her feelings. And validation then is the opportunity to tell her, you're not crazy for being angry with me. You're not crazy for being upset in whatever the situation is. So take all of the betrayal and pornography issues off the table. You come home and your wife says, I'm just so frustrated with this situation. You know, number one, validation means taking her side. So even if you know, she's frustrated about something that's really not that important, the truth is, for her to really feel supported, it is that important. That thing is that important to her because her emotions are important to you. And when you can communicate that through validation, then she feels more valued and more connected to you. And that general sense of like, wow, I don't know if she likes me. I don't know if she wants to be around me. When you invalidate a person, right? So the opposite of validation is invalidating them. And if you don't validate, you're pretty much invalidating what they're feeling. And because of that, I don't like being around people who make my heart, my emotions, my feelings feel unimportant or invalid. So validation is another huge step that we as spouses, as husbands, need to take in order for our wives to feel that support. Again, to feel that what they're feeling is valid and we're going to support them in it. And this creates the opportunity for connection. So validation creates connection. You're connecting with that person. You're connecting with their emotions. So when they're frustrated about something, when you empathize, you're like, wow, I've been through some frustrating situations and I can see how this is frustrating to you. And you know what? You've got every reason to be frustrated about it. It's really important that this person understand this thing that you're going through. And when they can say, wow, I really feel like you have helped me in this situation. You haven't fixed anything. You haven't changed anything. But you've given empathy to their emotions and you've given validation to why they're having those emotions. Then you have the opportunity to say, what can I do to help you with it? Then they're not feeling fixed. They feel heard, and then you can help find a solution. And that may be a little bit more that I'll explore right there is the whole problem-solving thing. We as guys, we're trained to be highly self-sufficient, meaning I don't need anybody's help, right? The old cowboy way, the loner way, the whatever, I'm going to do this lone wolf style. And out of this, when Lori would come to me with a problem, I would give her a solution instead of asking her, what if we tried this? What about your ideas? And giving, again, validation to her ideas in how to fix a particular problem. So I would say we'll call that 2B. 2B is that we're not asking for her input when we try to solve a problem. So 2A is we don't validate. 2B is we're not asking for her input when we try to solve the problem. And sometimes that can be as simple as, well, I've got some ideas on this, but what would you do? What are your thoughts on this? Again, making her a part of the team as opposed to a cog in the machine. So many times, and I'm really kind of shocked that this happens. I mentioned something to Lori and she does it. And she does it with, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, that was just a suggestion. And she's like, oh, well, the way you said it, I felt like I just needed to take care of it. So when you get to the place where your wife is open to the solution, you need to ask her, what would you do? How would you like to solve it? Does this sound like a good plan? Make sure that it's coming across as a question and not a order or a demand. And we'll get to that here in a minute. Again, if you have joined late, please feel free to use the chat window to ask questions. You're welcome to ask them at any time. I will get to those toward the end of our time together. I do want to touch on a few more things before I get to that point. Item number 3. One of the other reasons why I think Lori was pissed with me, even without my negative behaviors, is that I wasn't proactive. She would give me things to do, but I just wanted to kind of coast through things. I wanted to not have to worry about certain things, and I would leave them to her. In some ways, I think guys are trained that our primary job is to go earn money and come home and sit on the couch. And yes, there is a place for us to be a provider. However, sitting on the couch after we've done that means we're still kind of checked out. So I wasn't being proactive. I was only being reactive. I was waiting for Lori to tell me what to do. She had to give me a honey-do list as opposed to me seeing a problem and going and dealing with it. Or me asking, hey, we have this event coming up. It might be a holiday. It might be a family gathering, something like that. We have this thing coming up. I thought I could do this, this, and this to help you, as opposed to sitting on the couch and saying, well, I'm here if you need me. And so I can understand why Lori would be kind of pissed at me, because here she is doing all this work, pouring herself out for family, for me in certain instances. And my involvement is, I'm here if you need me, as opposed to, I see these 3 or 4 things I can work on. Would that be okay? How would you like me to handle them? Again, go back to, how do you want me to handle it? Because sometimes I would see something that she needed to get done, and I would elbow my way in and say, well, this is the way I'm going to do it, versus how would you like me to get it done? Also with the proactivity is, we fear her disappointment. I feared Lori's disappointment in me. I was afraid that if I took action without her permission, number 1, she would be disappointed, and number 2, that I wouldn't be able to withstand her disappointment, in me. That somehow being disappointed in me didn't mean just that I failed, but that there was no way for me to fix it, that I couldn't bear her emotions in this. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to take action, but it's not going to kill you. As long as you can return it to the store, as long as you can undo what you've done, and as long as you can take the feedback of, I appreciate that, but that's not what I wanted. As long as you can take that feedback, it'll be okay. But sometimes my fear of disappointing her, I sat on the couch because it was easier. It was a lot easier than disappointing her, especially when I wasn't sure if I could handle that disappointment. And then there's a fine line between being proactive for me and being proactive for her and for the relationship. I'll I'll try to think of a good example here, but I'll just basically outline it. I could be proactive for me in a situation and say, Thanksgiving's coming up, and I really like cranberry sauce shaped like a can. I'm going to go get 3 cans of cranberry sauce. I'm not going to ask Lori what kind she wants. I'm going to ask what kind I want, and I'm going to make sure we get it. I'm being proactive-ish. I'm helping her, kind of. But if that's not really what she wanted, or if she's like, well, yeah, the canned stuff's okay, but we also have someone bringing cranberry sauce, and they want to do it the traditional way, I may have just stepped on her toes. So there's a place for me to be proactive for me in a way that I can say, well, I'm being proactive, but it's really not supporting her or the relationship, right? So this whole conversation tonight is not just about me bending to Lori's will. This is about me bending to the relationship, valuing the relationship more than myself, because I know she does. I know that she values the relationship more than she values herself. That doesn't mean she doesn't ask for what she needs, and we'll get to that in a minute. But my tendency, and I think the tendencies of guys, because we're meant to, go forth, go win, go survive, we have a tendency to put ourselves ahead of the relationship. Because if you're anything like me, once I had the relationship, I checked a box in my head. I'm like, okay, I'm in this relationship. Now I need to make sure that I get taken care of, which kind of leads me into the next reason why my wife might be kind of pissed at me. And that has to do with expectations. I came into this relationship with expectations, but I didn't communicate them very well. I waited for them to be met. I got upset when they weren't met, but I never really explained to Lori, here's my expectations for this relationship. Here are 5 things that I need from you on kind of a regular basis. And, by the same token, she brought expectations into the relationship as well. And we didn't have really a relationship or like a discovery conversation about what are your expectations. We talked about the big stuff. How many kids do you want? How are we going to pay the bills? Are we going to go to this church or that church? We talked those things, but little expectations. Oh, well, I expect dinner on the table when I get home from work. Or I expect you to fold my laundry a certain way. One of the worst fights Lori and I got into early in our marriage was about how I wanted my laundry folded. And I have to thank the United States military for that. That I wanted my shirts folded a certain way because that's the way I had done it. And when they weren't done that way, I got upset about it. And that was really out of line because, number one, I never communicated that expectation. And number two, it really spoke to how inflexible I was. And, that's a part of this in expectations. I could have made a request. I could have said, hey, when you fold my t-shirts, would you mind to do them this way? Because that way they fit where I want to put them. I could have asked her that. Now, that's a request as long as I can hear the word no. If I can hear the word no, if I can say, hey, Lori, would you mind to fold my shirts like that? No. Okay, can I fold them then? Yes. So that's one way I could have gotten that expectation met. If she had said, if I'd said, could you fold them like this? And she says no, and I'm like, what do you mean? That's not a request, that's a demand. Because I'm not okay with no. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't try again and say, well, if you fold my shirts like this, I'll take care of something else for you. And try to be persuasive. That's different than just freaking out because I heard the word no. So there's a little bit of a fine line there, but really the clear thing that says this is a demand is how we deal with that no. All right. And then the last part of this on expectations is sometimes I assumed what Lori's expectations were of me. And because we hadn't talked through what her real expectations were, I assumed, and therefore I did things that weren't really true for her. They weren't really things she needed me to work on. But because I had made this assumption, I either got frustrated with her or she found things different than what her expectations really were. And so, because these expectations weren't clear, she might have been a little pissed at me. She might have had that sense of, he's not making requests, he's not trying to understand my expectations, he's just acting without feedback. And again, that doesn't invalidate her as a person. It just says that her way of doing things isn't that important to me, or her expectations aren't important to me. So if you want to have someone who is kind of pissed at you, feels like they generally don't want to be around you, ignoring their expectations is one way to to shut them down. It's a way for them to feel shut out of your life. And so they do kind of carry this, either this distance between you or a little bit of an edge between you. And that's something you can work on. You can sit down and clarify expectations. So I'm going to give you a really quick tool there, which is to just sit down and write out an agreement. On this particular thing, here's the agreement. I'm going to do this, this, and this whenever I fold the laundry. That's the agreement. Now, I'm responsible for that agreement, and Lori's responsible for that agreement. She can hold me to it if I violate it. I can hold her to it if she violates it. But sitting down with your spouse and actually writing out agreements is an effective way to help your relationship, because then you're both clear. We're not making assumptions. We're not keeping those expectations hidden. And we're not making demands. Somewhere in this agreement, you're both going to have to say, okay, I'm cool with this. I'm good. And move on. We actually have a notebook with about this many different agreements in it. Sadly, a lot of them are about my behavior and how I show up in relationship. And that's why I want to share these tools and this conversation with you, is so that your agreement book isn't this thick. Okay. So moving on to number 5. Number 5, and this one's going to be hard for some of you to hear, but it was true of me. I wanted to be treated like a man, but I acted like a child. So what does that look like? Asking Lori, I need your words of encouragement. I need your words of respect to feel good in this relationship. And she said, okay. Especially after I'd lied to her 1,000 times, she said, I will treat you with the respect due a normal person, just anyone in the world. I won't call you names. I won't belittle you. I won't badmouth you. But some of your behavior is not worthy of respect. And So if you want to be treated with the respect due an adult man, there's adult man things you need to do, like the dishes, like cutting the grass without being asked 100 times, taking the garbage out, putting a bag back in the garbage can. There are chores that are necessary to run a household. You may have gone from your parents' household into your married household and never had that transition time of living on your own. And for that reason, you may think, well, the garbage just got emptied. So I don't know who does that. An adult man who's proactive will see a full trash can and take the garbage out. Doing things like that versus having to be told, hey, the garbage is full, can you take it out? Oh, why should I have to do it? That's going to get you that treatment like a child. So there's an opportunity there. Be proactive. Go look at what chores are getting done in the household and figure out which ones you need to do. Now, if you have children that are somewhere between the ages of 5 and however old living in your house, they should be doing some of those chores too. And there's another opportunity for you to be an adult man, is to do unpleasant activities, like asking your children to do things they don't want to do either. They don't want to clean their room. They don't want to take the garbage out. They don't want to brush their teeth. It can't be just mom. It can't be just your wife who's doing these things. So by stepping into your role as a man, and again, this is scary. What if I do something wrong? What if I do something that makes her really mad? Yeah, I told them it would be okay if they brushed their teeth with, hemorrhoid cream or something like that, which I guess you're probably not going to say to them, but there is a risk in stepping into these things. If I do the dishes, what if I fill the dishwasher the wrong way? What if she gets upset with me? What if she says, I appreciate you loading the dishwasher. I wouldn't have done it that way. It doesn't mean you're a bad guy. It just means, okay, I loaded the dishwasher. I did what made sense to me. And maybe there's an opportunity for an agreement there. But those other unpleasant activities, besides just assigning tasks to your children, may be, are we going to your mother's again for Christmas? Because, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. I really don't. And so if you want to be treated like a man, there's a way to handle that situation like a man. Hey, we're going to your parents for Christmas, right? Yes, we are. How can I support you while we do that? What can I do to, make this a fun trip for you? We have to do unpleasant things as adults. We have to do unpleasant things as the leaders of our home. And to do that means stepping into that role. And when I would be faced with some of these unpleasant tasks, like going to a place I didn't really feel comfortable or spending time with people who I thought were weird, which is not my in-laws. I love my in-laws. But I had the little kid kind of reaction. I didn't want to do it. Instead of saying, yeah, there's a lot of unpleasant things I have to do in life. I have to go get my driver's license at the DMV sometimes. Sometimes I have to go visit people that I don't really want to hang around because the relationship with my wife is important to me. I value her enough to treat her well. Now, I can always say, hey, this situation isn't all that fun for me. I want to go with you. I want to show up well. Help me out here. What am I missing? How do I get to, what is it that I'm not connecting with these people? And if she says, trust me, I don't like them either, it's like, okay, then let's come up with a different way of dealing with this situation so that we both enjoy it as much as we can, So if you want to be treated like a man, don't act like a child. The last one here, and I think this is really big, is the word abdication. So, if you don't know the definition of the word, abdication means the king of the country says, I don't want to be king anymore. And he turns the throne over to someone else. He says, you do it. I'm done. I really don't want to be king. And that's fine. However, if you abdicate, you don't get to act like the king either. You can't have it both ways. So abdication would be your child coming to you and saying, this or that is happening in my life, and you say, go ask your mother. There's some places where guys are not well equipped and they should tell the child, go ask your mother. But when they don't step into any role, they're abdicating. They're giving their wife the role of king. And then they're mad. I was mad when I wasn't treated like one. So be careful of abdicating your role. If stuff needs to get done and you see it, go do it. That covers proactivity, that covers expectations, and that covers acting like a man. Now, in this, I don't want you to hear some of those classic phrases like man up or put on your big boy pants or any of those kind of things. Some of these things suck. There are chores that I do I absolutely hate. And Lori knows it, but I'm the best equipped person to do them. And so she's sympathetic, she's empathetic, she gets that this is painful for me, but at the same time, I'm the only person that's going to go do them. And she's willing to hear me out when I say, man, I really hate doing this part of the whatever. She gets it. But she respects me because I step in and do it anyway. So this is not, this is not the classic grow up kind of speech. This is, as men, we've been told, well, let me back up. As men, we may have been enabled by our parents to do nothing. That in our parents' house, we were treated a certain way, whether we did anything or not. And that's probably okay, but when it's your household, doing nothing means you've abdicated. And when you've abdicated, it's okay for your wife to be a little pissed with you. So, start asking her, hey, I think I might have let this go and I really want to step back into this role. What would that look like if I were to do that? What would it look like if I were to help you out there? And she will probably look at you and go, thank you. Thank you so much for stepping into this particular role. All right. One more area to cover. And this one deals with betrayal as well, but it deals with just generally apologizing. One of the ways in which I knew that I was kind of living under this cloud of my wife being generally pissed at me is I apologized all the time. Well, I didn't really apologize. I said I was sorry a lot. I didn't actually apologize, and I'll get to that in a minute. And so I was sorry that the grocery store was out of the type of bread that she wanted. I was sorry that it was raining. I was just sorry because I knew that she was kind of pissed at me. And what that kind of spoke to my own lack of confidence of being able to sit in her discomfort too. I'm sorry they don't have the bread that you wanted. What can I do? How do I keep you from feeling bad so that I don't have to sit with you feeling bad? So I apologize for it instead of saying, yeah, they were out of the bread you wanted, so I got this other type. I hope it works. Being proactive and solving the problem instead of coming home and saying, well, they didn't have the bread you wanted, so I got no bread at all. And now she has to go find the bread. Or maybe you go to a different store and find the bread she asked for. But the big part of this is when you truly apologize, you're going to make an offer of repair. You're going to take responsibility for your role in it. And you're going to try to make it right. So when you apologize, a big part of your apology needs to be, what can I do to make this right? How can I get us back to a good place? And honestly, when you've lied to your wife 1,000 times like I did, there's not a lot you can do. You can sit with her in her pain. You can own everything that you did, but there's not a lot you can do to repair it. I can't take away the pain I caused, but at least I can sit with her as she goes through it all. So a big part of, again, why I think wives might be a little pissed at you is you apologize, but that apology falls flat when you're not making an offer of repair. You're not saying, wow, I totally screwed up. I get that. I really want to own my part in it. How can I make this right? And then being willing, so this is a big part of it too. You've then got to follow through on whatever it is that she says is going to make it right. Because when you don't follow through, we're back into that invalidating the person. I asked you to do this thing for me. It was a big deal. It was not a big deal. It was something you agreed to, though. And when you agree to, hey, I will do anything to make it right. Okay. Go, I'll use my Monty Python lines, go cut down the largest tree in the forest with a herring. I'm all over it. I'll go do that. But when you don't follow through, you're basically saying, yeah, I feel bad that I did something, but I'm really not going to try to make it right. So she might be a little pissed at you because there's all of these things that you've apologized for, but you've never really made them right. So there's an opportunity there as well. What can I do to make this right? How do I fix this situation? And another way of saying I'm sorry, so this is kind of a little side thing. For stuff you really need to apologize for it. If you are unavoidably late for a meeting, instead of saying, sorry, I'm late, walk in and say, thank you guys for sticking around and being patient when I couldn't make it on time. Appreciate them for what they did instead of just throwing out the general sorry. Sorry my garbage can spilled into your yard. Hey, thanks for understanding. It was windy last night. I'll get it all cleaned up, or thanks for your help in cleaning it up. So there's another way you can take an approach. Instead of saying I'm sorry all the time, say thank you. Thank you for your patience with me as I try to figure out what we're going to do next on this talk. I know where we're going, but I thought it would be funny to throw that in there. So if you have any questions, again, please throw them in the chat window. I want to dig deeper into these kind of topics. I want to talk more about emotional health. A big part of the reason why I didn't show up well in my relationship was I was really emotionally unhealthy. And so if you think there would be value in digging into that, I want to help you out there. maybe you have a history of betrayal and you're trying to fix that. Whatever the betrayal is, my lies stacked up to the sky, I know how to help people with betrayal. So maybe we want to talk about betrayal. Maybe we want to talk about, a number of things. And I've got a lot of ideas, but I'm also willing to hear what you as the audience might have that, hey, could we touch on this topic or that topic?